What Mark Zuckerberg has done today is absolutely huge. In this letter here, Mark Zuckerberg has admitted that the Democrats put huge pressure on Meta to censor information around COVID-19 and on some other news stories which harmed the Democrats' reputation. This is absolutely huge because Mark Zuckerberg here has highlighted very clearly that the Democrats are absolute liars. Because if we go back to this video in 2022, when the Democrat administration was questioned on this, they absolutely denied any pressure on social media companies to censor. Take a look at this.
Now, you said earlier this year that you disbanded the Disinformation Governance Board, which I thought was totally unconstitutional, but that turns out to be, at best, misleading. That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you're doing. Your own quadrennial review, which was just reported in the press, says that disinformation is going to be the new focus at DHS. The Quad Review says that DHS plans to target, I'm quoting now, inaccurate information domestically on a wide array of subjects, including, quoting, the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, racial justice, U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the nature of U.S. support for Ukraine. A federal judge has just found as a finding of fact, Mr. Secretary, that your office, and I'm going to quote now, is supervising the nerve center of federally directed censorship. Here's another email, August 20th, 2021. Facebook writes again to HHS and highlights that Facebook is increasing the strength of our demotions for COVID and vaccine-related content. April 16th, 2021, Rob Flaherty at the White House circulates a Zoom meeting invitation to Twitter employees stating White House staff will be briefed by Twitter on vaccine misinformation. We have example after example of this administration coordinated, apparently, according to a federal court, by your agency, pressuring, coercing social media companies to engage in censorship. Is that constitutional?
That is unequivocally false.
Is what the emails show.
It is unequivocally false, Senator.
You are not pressuring the big tech companies to take down accounts. You are not meeting with them to ask them to censor on your behalf.
That is correct. We are not.
Mr. Secretary, it has been established for years in this country, as you very well know because you're a lawyer, that the federal government may not use private third parties to engage in activities that are unconstitutional. That's exactly what you and this administration are doing. You are leveraging private companies to carry out censorship on your behalf. It's dystopian, but worse than that, it's unconstitutional.
It's also false.
Wow. So you've seen it clear as day there that the Democrat administration, point blank, completely denied any pressure on social media companies to censor. Despite that guy there showing all of the evidence and all of the emails showing otherwise, they completely denied any pressure to censor. And Mark Zuckerberg has today confirmed that they are absolute liars and that was completely wrong. However, Mark Zuckerberg has not just admitted today that he received pressure from the Democrats to censor. He admits that he gave in to that pressure, at least to some extent, and censored content according to their requests. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that Mark Zuckerberg, should we be proud of him today for what he's done, or should we be angry at him because he did allow this censorship? He may have come out now and said that it was wrong, but should we forgive him for what he did in the past? Elon would have never given in to any of that pressure, would he? But Mark Zuckerberg did. Let's take a look at the letter and then you guys can make up your minds. I won't read through the whole thing, but let's just read through a little bit of this. So in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire. What? Couldn't even post a meme. And expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Okay, so it wasn't just, hey, we think you guys should maybe take down this content, but we'll leave it up to you. They weren't happy if they didn't do what they said. So this really feels like a form of coercion, if you ask me. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. I think there he's referring to the fact that information about potential harms of vaccines was taken down on social media platforms, and on the basis that, we need everyone to take this vaccine, else all the grannies will die. We can't have any information out that suggests that there might be anything wrong with this vaccine. Everyone thought that they were just crazy conspiracy theorists, but then, this new information he refers to, right, is that, now clearly we have seen that the vaccine has had horrendous complications for some people, and that absolutely should have been up for discussion and out in the open during those early days, but sadly it wasn't because of this censorship, which is very, very scary. Anyway, let's continue. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. So that's promising. He wants to change for the future, and this gives me some hope that he will not cave in, or at least not completely, to pressure from Keir Starmer's government to censor information, for example, about riots, about immigration, about Islam. But we'll see what happens, because Meta still today are, they've taken down some of our content here at Reasoned for it being too controversial. So Meta's not perfect, but it looks like they're going in the right direction. Now, it wasn't just COVID where they received pressure to censor information. Take a look at the next paragraph. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. We changed our policies and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the US while waiting for fact checkers. Wow, so the Democrats lied to Meta and claimed that a story was Russian disinformation because they didn't want their reputation damaged. They did not want free speech. They did not want a free discussion on this story. This is dystopian. This is very, very scary. And I think it's important to highlight this at a time when you see Kamala supporters saying they want to vote for Kamala because Kamala is pro-democracy and Trump is going to take away democracy. A key part of democracy is free speech. The Democrat Party is not very democratic if they do not believe in free speech and they want to take down information from the internet, pressure social media companies into taking it down when it suits them. So it's really, really, this is quite a huge moment, what Mark Zuckerberg has done. Let's just look at the last part of the letter. Apart from content moderation, I want to address the contributions I made during the last presidential cycle to support electoral infrastructure. The idea here was to make sure local election jurisdictions across the country had the resources they needed to help people vote safely during a global pandemic. I made these contributions through the Chan Zuckerberg initiative. They were designed to be non-partisan, spread across urban, rural, and suburban communities. Still, despite the analyses I've seen showing otherwise, I know that some people believe this work benefited one party over the other. My goal is to be neutral and not play a role one way or another, or even to appear to be playing a role. So I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle. Signed off by Mark Zuckerberg himself. This was not just, this clearly was a big thing, a big statement for him to be writing it himself rather than just coming from somebody else in the company. Now, as I said at the beginning, I want to ask the question to you guys. Do you think that we should be angry at Mark Zuckerberg for what he did, allowing this censorship and to go ahead on his platforms, or should we be happy with Mark Zuckerberg for completely exposing the Biden administration today in his letter for their anti-democratic and anti-free speech 1984 style tendencies? Now, let's have a look at what some other people had to say. We've got some mixed opinions on this. So this was PBD, Patrick Bet-David's tweet on this. So with this letter he posted, he either admitted this because 1, he's being honourable, 2, he's done with the Democrat Party, or 3, he's getting ahead of a whistleblower. So, that just shows you that there are potentially several different motivations for Mark Zuckerberg to write this letter. It's not necessarily just because he's decided that he's now the bastion of free speech. It could be that there is a whistleblower who is going to expose this, and he wanted to get this out, and so that it comes from him and he looks like he is in the good before a whistleblower does so. Who knows? Or it could be that he was a big Democrat supporter, as he says there in number 2, but now is absolutely fed up of them. Or one there, he's being honourable, he's being honest, he has decided that he's pro-free speech and that he's just had a moral awakening. Who knows? But, I think this point here, I think at the end where Patrick Bet-David says, either way, this is a very hard letter to write. I think that's an important point to make. Whatever you think of Mark Zuckerberg, I think that what he did today was quite brave. And regardless of his motivation, I think it was quite important for this to be exposed. And I'm very glad that Mark Zuckerberg has done that. Now, Charlie Kirk, perhaps a little bit more cynical. Mark Zuckerberg has access to billions of data points of the American public. A very plausible conclusion to draw from his letter to the House Judiciary Committee is that he is seeing the macro data and trends and is getting ahead of what he knows is coming in November. Therefore, this was not a genuine regret, as it was a pragmatic business decision. Just a business decision? Just about money? What do you think, guys? Let me know in the comments below. And then, probably one of the most cynical of the ones I've seen, Blair White does not want to give Mark Zuckerberg any slack or any respect for this letter that came out today. She says, wow, everyone willing to forgive Mark Zuckerberg so quickly for interfering in 2 elections is so kind. I'm not put him in effing prison. Pretty strong words there from Blair White. Let me know, do you agree with Blair? Or are you perhaps a little bit more sympathetic, like Patrick Bet-David, saying, you know what, this was a really hard letter to write regardless of the intention behind it? Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure we're going to get more developments on this story over the next day or so, and maybe we'll be able to pin down a bit better what exactly Mark Zuckerberg's motivations were. I'm Chloe Dobbs. This is another video for Reasoned. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you press the notification bell so you do not miss any more updates on this story and any of the others that are going to be going on in the next month, because Parliament is going to be going back, so there's going to be a heck of a lot more politics going on. Make sure you are tuned in to our channel for it all.